Welcome to Joshua Schultz's podcast. We'll be covering entertainment, movies, photography, TV shows, and health. All right, so welcome to the podcast. Can you start out by saying who you are, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Christopher Mansfield. That's my Christian name, and I play guitar and sing for Fences. And Fences is basically a moniker for me, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
That's about it, I guess, right?
When did you start Fences?
I think I was going to Berklee in College of Music in Boston, and I was going for jazz composition, and I sort of found myself not able to express what I was going through as like a young man in like a city and dealing with like, heartbreak or falling in love or, budding alcoholism and just all these like real human things through like jazz music. It wasn't like hitting. So I realized I needed to like just fucking say it, like just actually say what I'm thinking instead of like, some harmonic minor scale. So I ended up like dropping out and selling my basses and getting an acoustic guitar and playing like basement shows. Let's see. That was probably like 20 years ago.
What year were you at Berklee?
Probably like 2004, something like that.
That's so weird because I went to school in Boston and I got a job right across the street from Berklee. So I would look at it outside my office window every day.
Crazy. Like the 150 building on Mass Ave.
Yeah.
Weird.
I remember I was doing night classes at Harvard. I was trying to become a full-time student, and you could take the same classes that the regular Harvard student takes at night, and then you have to get like your letters of recommendation from your professors and a certain amount of credits. And so I remember I was so broke because I was working full time and going to school full time that I became friends with somebody at Starbucks who would like give me free food, and then I became friends with somebody at a burger joint and they'd like give me free burgers. And we were a record label, but they like taught singing or something, so a lot of Berklee students came through. But that's so weird that we didn't know each other, and you were on that side of the street and I was on this side of the street looking that way.
Yeah, probably out there smoking cigarettes. I used to go to Little Stevie's Pizza. Do you remember that place? It was right around, it's like, here's Berklee, and you take a left by Jack's Drum Shop, and it was real crusty and old, but they had pieces of pizza that were like this big for $1. And I think it'd been there since like the 60s, but they shut it down. But we used to hang there, and that's back when Newbury Street had the slab. Remember that? There was like this, Newbury Street, right?
Yeah.
They recently closed it off, but there used to be this big concrete slab that just like all the degenerate kids would like hang out on. It was like kind of sort of like when that stuff wasn't really popular, like the street kid thing. It was a wild time in Boston back then.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know the name of it because I didn't know a lot of the locals, but I remember there was this hipster joint when you go out. I guess if you got to Berklee, you take a right. All at the end, it was like a cafe. And
the other side cafe outside.
Like you have to go over a little bridge.
Yeah, I know.
Mass.
I know the cafe. I actually saw a. It's a horrible story, but I was outside smoking a cigarette with the singer from that band Block Party. Remember that band?
Oh yeah.
But this was like then, before they
way
were
back.
like, yeah, and we saw a guy die. Like a semi truck hit a dude on a moped, and like it was like gruesome, and it was just me and him, and like we ran up, and then some girl comes running, and I was like, It was like, get back, you don't want to see that. And then we just went back inside. But every time I listen to Block Party, I think of that and that cafe.
Oh my god, that's I will say for me, I never realized how brutal Boston was, but I remember this is a totally other random story. I was going to class one night and I had to go meet with my jazz professor at Harvard. Um, and he was not a nice person.
Hmm.
Um, and so I went to go have a one-on-one with him, and there was a film crew in front of his office with a van, and they stopped me and they were filming a scene, and I asked what movie they were making, and they said it was a movie about Facebook, and I was like, that's stupid. Like,
Yeah.
who cares about
Is it the
Facebook? That's
one?
never going to be anything.
Yeah.
And it was the
Crazy.
Social Network. It was the scene where
Wow.
the party bus shows up with all the girls, and they like go to the frat party in the beginning of the movie. Um, and I'm shocked at how small of a production it was um, at Harvard. But it's also speaking of jazz. So the reason I'm in Florida is my grandma started working for a really famous jazz musician, and he
Hmm.
moved my family to Florida to work for him.
Hmm.
A guy named Chick Corea. He's won like
I mean, I
a
know who that
million.
is.
Oh, okay. And he
Yeah,
passed
Chick Corea.
away last year, and he left my
Hmm.
grandma a percentage of his estate, and so she still runs.
Crazy.
Um, but that's what a
Yeah,
small
Chick
world.
Corea is amazing. I mean, he was in Return to Forever,
Yeah.
like Stanley Clark, and yeah, that I mean that '70s jazz fusion is amazing. My bass player for like all my records, and sometimes if we do like bigger things, Felix Pistorius. His father is Jaco Pistorius. He's
Okay.
like the world's most famous jazz bass player, but he's also from Florida. Um, so I think there's something in Florida, like I don't know, like the wildness of the nature. You know what I mean? I always assume like jazz guys are all from like New York or Chicago, but it's not really the case.
Yeah, there's a lot of musicians down here. Um, Also, later on, some of your address, I'll send you a little something special from Chick
I'd
Corea's
love it.
estate.
Cool. Thank you.
Um, but so then, okay, so going back to fences, so you started playing acoustic, and how did it kind of grow from there?
Mm. Well, I feel like I got like a little bit, maybe not lucky, but I like my story is very like, it feels almost old fashioned because I would play basement shows, coffee shops, and then I ended up moving from Boston up to New York, and I'd play like little places in New York. Moved to Seattle, um, and literally just playing wherever I could, and I put some songs up on MySpace, and I was like a dishwasher, and just like, but it was a crazy time. It was like I was like riding the bus with Josh Tillman, who's like Father John Misty, and like Macklemore was starting, Fleet Foxes were starting. So Seattle, I don't think anyone realized at the time it was kind of it was like a little scene was happening,
Yeah.
um, and and yeah, it was just kind of like a fucking you know dishwasher, just like tattooed, smoking cigarettes, just kind of like a fucking you know whatever, like a hobo. But I had some tunes, and I put them on MySpace, and Tegan and Sarah found it, right?
Oh, no
Um,
way.
and then they produced my
I
first
saw them in
record.
concert. What?
They're,
No way.
they're great, yeah. So I kind of got like, just grabbed by God or Sarah Quinn, um, sort of a little bit of out of obscurity, which I believe I still live in obscurity mildly, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I went up to Canada, recorded my self-titled, and I think like a year later we were like on tour with like Against Me and like did Lollapalooza, and that was sort of it. But yeah, I think I literally like she asked me to go to Canada to record my record, and I didn't even have an ID. I didn't, let alone a passport. So I had to like do all this shit, and it was like I had to like become like a person. And I remember when I was there, she was like, she's like, you don't have a phone? She said, do you only brought one pair of jeans? And I was like, I only have one pair of jeans, you know? Like, so yeah, that was kind of the beginning. And then I think when shit like really changed for me, obviously was like the relationship with Macklemore, you know, because we were friends before he became this behemoth celebrity. Um, and we did a song called Other Side, and that got pretty, like, I think that shit's at like, I could be wrong, but it's either like 40 million or like 80 million on YouTube,
Wow,
the
that's amazing.
video. So that was crazy. And then he blew up with Thrift Shop and stuff. And then I got signed to Atlantic, and we did that song Arrows, him and I. And that was like, that was about 10 years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so he did that. And then, you know, we were obviously, you know, close friends. And then I got signed to Atlantic Records. And then we did Arrows, him and I, on, so he came on one of my songs. Um, so it was sort of like, I don't know, like, the one thing I've noticed about this journey and career is that everyone sort of like helps each other. You know, it's like Tegan and Sarah helped me, and then when I did the song with Macklemore in the beginning, I was like helping him. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then he blows up, he helps me, and then like, cause you just everyone kind of around you, like 5 years they might be the biggest thing, you know, and you just kind of have to like all like go up with each other, cause I mean shit, the people that you know, I don't have regrets really, but it's funny. There's people that I have that have like reached out to me, like do a song or something. And I'm like, nah. And then like 3 years later, they're like fucking huge. You know what I
Uh,
mean? And you're like, oh my god. So
yeah.
it's just like it's a weird game. And I figure it sounds so dumb, but if you just do a good job and like your music's beautiful and like you're like fairly nice, if you just do it for like 10 years, like you something will happen for you, you know?
Yeah.
It's just
I
what I've
love that. I
seen.
love what you said too about helping each other because I feel like the way to survive as an artist is to surround yourself with great people and to help each other. It just makes you so much stronger than the hustler mentality of like climbing on top of each other and using each other to get to the next level and then discarding that person. But if you have this like community and this family,
Yeah,
then you
you
kind of
can't because dude, like the reason we got signed to Atlantic, like Elektra Atlantic, is because a producer that liked us, his manager, um, I had lunch with about just working with the producer. A few years later, he became the president of Elektra. So you see what I'm
wow,
saying? It's like,
yeah,
but that shit happens constantly. It's such a rotation of like who's big right now, like who's in charge of this right now, and you just see people kind of cycle through this whole machine. So it's like literally you'd never know everybody you're talking to. It could be a kid on your couch like showing you a song, and then like it's fucking Tyler Childers in like a year. So it's like,
yeah,
and that's not to say to like kiss everyone's ass like disingenuously, like because they might get big. It's not like a manipulation tactic, but it's more of like don't ever feel like you're the fucking alpha or apex predator, because everyone around you can just, you know, be like heaven bound like in a fucking blink of an eye, you know.
yeah. Just be a good person and work hard. And I remember a story that was my first example of that that weirdly connects to you. I was asked to photograph this band, um, and I didn't have enough money for gas, so I borrowed money for gas. I went and
Mhm.
photographed Imagine Dragons, and they hadn't blown up yet, and they were like starting to.
Mhm.
And we did this photo shoot. I remember like convincing a restaurant to cater it for free, and we had a great shoot. And then a couple months later, they blew up, and I get a call from Rolling Stone asking to publish a photo, and I, had to pretend like it happened all the time, so and that I wasn't excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him the files, and I didn't hear anything for a few months. And then a few months later, a friend of mine called me screaming, and there was a full page photo of Imagine Dragons with my name, but on the cover of the Rolling Stone was Macklemore. And then when your music video Arrows came out, that Rolling Stone is in that music video. So it's this weird
Oh,
connection. And then I met
crazy.
you right after that. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
it was
watching the
cool.
video and I was like, that's my first time ever getting published. And it's in your music video. I just thought that was such
I
a
mean, it is,
weird
and
coincidence.
that's proof of it right there, right? Like everything is like webbed, like whether it's in obscure ways like that, but everything's extremely connected. And I
Yeah.
think once you know that, uh, that fucking applies to like everything, and particularly like the arts, with like human relationships. I think the moment you get this like sort of, because I think that's sort of like a thing. Sometimes when you try to, make work, you feel like it's you against the world, right? That's like romantic a bit, and to a degree, it's that way because it takes a lot of convincing and a lot of no's, and that's going to happen to you so much. But when you start to sort of feel the connectivity of the community, and just realize that like every like kind of no you'll get from a label in a couple years, you probably will be thankful because it just opens some other shit. And it's like, I think that's what's important, just to kind of like, I don't know, like someone told me just to like trust God, whatever God is. Just like trust, like do it all for God. Don't do it for money, fame, success. If you do it for God, whatever that is to you, you'll sort of feel the massive thing, and whatever happens is like, you know, inherently like correct, you know.
Yeah, I love that. That reminds me of that who's that singer who just blew up north by Richmond? Um Country singer anyway. He was
Oh yeah,
struggling.
yeah.
Yeah. I just was listening to this interview with him, and he was saying how he was struggling and he was depressed, he was unhappy, and he was having all these troubles, and he decided to basically just give himself up to God.
Mm,
And a month later, his song blew up. And for me, like, what that would mean to me is I remember when I was getting into art, the advice I was given is you got to look at the reason or the purpose of why you're doing something. And I'm so madly in love with art that if I could, I would just do it for free all the time because it makes me so happy. And so my purpose
mm-hmm,
has never been money, but it's been to make something important or special or try to, whatever shoot I'm doing, to try to make it the best shoot, to always try to take risk and innovate. And, in a way, when I die, leave a legacy of like, hopefully something that will live on, that will make people feel something. And
mm-hmm.
so I like to look at like my motivation is my purpose, and
Right.
but when I meet people in LA that want fame or money, they seem to be very miserable and they don't seem to have a lot of success. And so, having your purpose straight, your priorities straight, and then having that family of like-minded artists that support each other, I just feel like not only is it a better formula for success, but it just makes the journey so much more fucking fun,
Yeah.
because it could be brutal.
Yeah, it can be, and I've definitely, I mean, been in moments where I just was thinking like, why would I put myself through such suffering? And particularly when you get in the mindset of like the level of your art is like the level of your value as a human, that can get pretty dangerous, for both reasons. Because if you're not doing well, you feel like you're like in the grave, and then if you're doing really well, you have some kind of crazy ego or something, and it's really tough to sort of like decouple yourself from the work, and I
Yeah.
think that's why the God thing is so effective, because it's like even like you saying like it's for the love of the work and like the legacy and stuff, and that's like that could even be transferred to doing it for God, because like really, what is a legacy? Like, what even
Right.
is that? It's like it's more of like a you're honoring your life, like even when you're gone. You've given a gift of like your presence on Earth, and it's like then you have to ask yourself like, who are you thanking,
Yeah.
right?
I love that. Um, which I guess leads me to the next question of so uh, so the first time I got to meet you and interview you was years ago
Uh-huh.
for a music magazine. We did a on-camera interview because I remember at the time I was doing a bunch of stuff with Atlantic, and that was around the time Arrows and was out. So what has your journey been like from that moment moving forward?
Mm. Um. God, it's so much. Let's see. Sort of, kind of, rode that fucking pony to the end, and that was about another year of that, probably. Just real super, like, kind of vibrant crunch time, just always on airplanes, and you know, being like kind of a little bit of like a, I don't know how you'd put it, just like the darlings of the label, and everybody's excited, and your family's your friends are excited, just all that nonsense, probably another year of that, and then that sort of died down. I think we didn't get as famous probably as the label would have liked or whatever. And I think that was partly I was maybe a little self-destructive or confused on what I was to them, because I'm like, man, I like fucking Elliott Smith. Like, I don't know what you think I am, you know. Um, I don't know what they thought. I mean, I think that was like before Post Malone, I think, but I think they were trying to make me like this like bad boy pop star or something,
Yeah.
potentially. It's like because in when we were doing television, I wasn't playing a guitar. I was just holding the mic, and so I think they had this sort of idea of what I was going to be, and then I kind of had a little bit of a meltdown. I was living in Brooklyn, and I was like, I just want to write like straight folk songs, like fuck that, and like you know. So I made like another EP. I think I made a few records. I made one in Nashville called Failure Sculptures. I just sort of, after that, I started to do music that I really, really loved. Not to say I didn't like Lesser Oceans, but I mean, truly, like, if I could, the stuff that I'd want to put out now, I'd want to put out just like a Hammer Dulcimer album or something. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't care about that kind of thing so much. And
Well, I think with art too, like sometimes people try to put you in a category, but like I notice with
mhm.
me, it's kind of whatever the fuck I'm feeling that day. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
I want to make a more poppy photo shoot, I do that. If I want to make a fucking dark horror gothic video, I do that. It's whatever I'm inspired. And I think as a musician, that's one thing that cracked me up about Beck is like, I love that he has like a slow album with like a full orchestra, and then he has like a
Hmm.
rap album, and then and I'd love to see more of that. Like just a musician doing whatever they want, whatever instead of like they're this genre forever. Um,
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's weird. It's like I don't know. It's almost like you have to sort of be that person, like sort of make it known that you are that guy. Like I think everyone understands that Beck is that. So it's like if Beck were to put out a record that sounded like his last record, people would be like, "What the hell?" Like he's not being Beck. But yeah, I don't know. Like I wouldn't say that the label. I don't know if labels really do this too much. I mean, mine doesn't now, and they didn't really too much then. Say like you have to do this kind of stuff, because they kind of are like it's like as much as they are kind of like monsters, like business people, like they want to be cool and they want to be liked, so they want to be like, I'm hip, I get what creativity is and all this shit. So they'll be like, oh yeah, you want to put like saxophone on it? That sounds cool. Try it. So they try to like bond with you in that way, but it's more of just like once you sort of once someone invests money into you for like a certain like model, you just sort of feel like that thing, you know. If that was like the biggest moment for you, you feel like that thing. And like I just know, I know for a fact if I would have went to Atlantic with like an all acoustic record, they wouldn't have taken it, you know. That's just a fact. So that's kind of a drag, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
was just
guess that's something you could always
clarifying.
do. Yeah. Although it makes me think of Post Malone now because now Post Malone's making country and
Yeah.
but I guess he had to first do the first Post Malone hits.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy. Like I don't know. I don't really know his music or anything like that. I mean, I definitely get a lot of shit from it from like kids, you know, saying, "Oh, is that Post Malone?" Because it's like that's the most famous guy with face tattoos, you know. But I'm like, shit, I
yeah.
had him way before. I mean, I had face tattoos when he was probably like 12, you know. Um, but yeah, I don't see. I don't get that. It's like part of me thinks it's like genius. It's like, whoa, like you do like the most popular style of music to get yourself known, and then you can make what you're making now. It's like it's kind of like wearing a costume into a building and then like ripping it off and being like, I'm just kidding, this is me, but you let me in. It's kind of brilliant, but also I truly wouldn't even suggest that it was that well thought out with him. I think that like, you know, based on his age, he's just I feel like he's like so famous that he's like growing up in front of the world. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like when he was making his first stuff, it's like he probably wanted to have like cornrows and like, you know, whatever that is. Like, is it? I think it's rap or something. Like, that's probably what he genuinely liked. And now he's like getting older and he's like, fucking Sturgill Simpson is rad. So it's like, that's like the crazy trouble with that too is like, if you're that famous at an age where you literally are developing your tastes and stuff, you could look as if you're like sort of switching like within the game, but you're just like no, I'm just starting to like different things as a human, which like we all do, but he's doing it with like a fucking the world's giant spotlight on him. And I mean, I know he probably liked, at least I know from like Billy Strings, he said that like Austin's liked, you know, country his whole life and stuff like that. But yeah, I find it interesting how you can have such a genre switch. Like Machine Gun Kelly, like that shit is so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like rap and then pop punk, and it's just there's no way that it doesn't like one of those things seems like it loses value. It's like which one is real? Are they both real? Maybe they can be. I don't know, but it's odd.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of a couple years ago. I was having dinner with a lead singer of a band that had been really relevant for like 40 years, and they're one of my favorite bands in high school. And I asked him about what he did to be successful for so long, and we basically came to the conclusion that music is the product of a company, but essentially he's the CEO of a media company. Like he's producing content and
Mm-hmm.
marketing and PR all to get the music out. But if he was just an artist, then probably nobody would ever hear his music or give a shit. But
Wow.
he's having to constantly juggle this entire structure. Um, and it kind of blew my mind and made me think about like, cause I'm a photographer and a director, and probably 80% of my job is just marketing, just getting the stuff out there, so the right person sees it and then they hire me and I do the job. Unless
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my own art, then I go on my adventures, and that's my favorite because it feels the least businesslike and the most pure art.
Yeah.
Um, which then feels the most authentic and truthful. And that's the weird thing about being an artist too, is I feel like when you're being an artist, there's so much tapping into your soul and being vulnerable and honest and authentic. But then when you have to transfer over to the business side, it's like a completely different brain, and it just doesn't feel very, it's not on the same wavelength of art in any way whatsoever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I guess, like a paradox. It's it is very like, God and the devil. Um, but I think I don't know that it's like that goes back so many layers. Like, you could say I could put out a song and then go, okay, now I have to figure out a way personally in this day and age how to engage people with it, how so they'll listen to it. But then you think like, are you doing that from like the beginning of it, like at it's like when it bloom when you're fucking alone, like is that happening then already? And that kind of frightens me sometimes, to think you're already starting the sales pitch as soon as you fucking pick up the instrument. And that's like
Yeah.
something to avoid, I guess. But it's like, but you kind of have to, right? Because if you, I don't know, how do I put it, if you wanted to really, if a human wanted to really really honestly express themselves, maybe they'd want to like scream into the guitar and then smash it, and that would be like honest. But you have to fucking like, okay, this, I have to follow this structure and these rules, and like the words have to rhyme, there has to be a melody. So you are sort of already building this digestible thing that's like, I wouldn't call it disingenuine, but like I was thinking this thing was like, I was listening to like my baby kind of like snore in her sleep, like breathing, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, that's like my favorite like music, right?
Yeah.
But like, but you could never put that out. But like, it's just kind of fun to like think that way. Like, I've seen some poems by like Kerouac or something, where um, it's just a bunch of letters, just
Uh-huh.
but you get it because you're like, he's probably just like fuck this, like, so you kind of feel it. You know what I mean? But like,
I
it's,
love that.
you have to be able to sort of rein in chaos a little bit, and I guess my point is that I think the moment that you rein in chaos and apply language and like musical language, you're already starting the process of selling it.
Yeah. Well, and also like I think like you're right in terms of learning the tools and the language, and then structuring it in a way that's artistic to express yourself. But one thing that, and I could be wrong about this, but one thing that I've noticed with music is a lot of stuff that Elise has presented to me is very structured and formulaic, and it makes me miss, the old 5 minute long guitar solos and the drum solos, and just
Hmm.
trying crazy stuff, but still makes you feel something.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd love to see more of that, of like somebody just whatever, if they're breaking a rule or it's still in the rules or whatever, but it still makes you feel, but it's just different. Because when everything's so the same,
Hmm.
it's sort of all drowns out. You don't notice it, but if something stands out and it's different, um, that's probably why old classic music is still so popular, because there's not a lot of stuff to replace it nowadays. And even some of these major, like this country guy that blew up, I found out that he recorded the song on his Samsung phone. Like there's no
Hmm.
mixing or mastering. And I loved I forget who they are. I think it's the Felice Brothers. There's this album they were recording in a church during a thunderstorm, and you can hear lightning hit the church, and
Mm.
then you hear the thunder after, and like there's a little zap, and it just adds to the song, like these weird imperfections. And
That's cool.
um, yeah, I love stuff like that. I get goosebumps every time I hear that song and lightning hits the church.
Oh, they call it
Um,
that. That's the
what's
name of
that?
the song. They call it
Oh,
Lightning Hits the Church too.
No, I forget what the song's called.
I'll
I think
find
it's
it.
I think it's put some whiskey in my whiskey. I'll have to check it out.
That's funny. I mean, I like stuff like that. There's a Jaco Pastorius tune called Crisis, and he was suffering from bipolar disorder, and so he had every musician record like a crazy part, just like by themselves, but they couldn't. No one could hear what each other was doing. So everything's out of key, out of place, everything, and then he just smashed it all together, and it's like it just sounds like chaos, but it sounds like that disease, you know.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
opens the record with it, and it's like so brave, and I just love shit like that. Where I guess that's my point, like finding a line of really expressing crazy stuff like that, like honestly, like instead of saying like I have bipolar disorder, like it's like well, I don't sound like you do, you know. It's like or Mount Erie, a crow looked at me, like his wife died, and he said he starts a song like our daughter is 1.5. You've been dead 11 days. Like he's fucking writing a song 11 days later, and it's so
Jesus.
heartbreaking. But that's the kind of shit that interests me, I guess, is like you know, like really really go for it sometimes. I mean, not all the time because I would feel bad for a man um, who has to sort of be like a like a frontiersman into someplace that dark all the time. But it's pretty
Yeah,
beautiful when someone's like brave enough to go to those places.
yeah, and also like I guess my only rule for me personally is as long as it makes me feel something. You know what I mean? Like it
Hmm.
could be super produced, it could be uh, auto tuned, it could be formulaic, or it could be shitty recorded
Hmm.
um, on a guitar made out of some strings on like a piece of wood. Like I think if the artist figures out a way to make me feel something, then to me you got me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think that goes back to purpose too. Like sometimes I watch shows and movies that are all formulaic and I feel nothing. And I feel like if you were to abandon all other BS and just concentrate on making something that's going to create an emotional reaction,
Hmm.
um, then like that's to me the highest priority or purpose. But anyway, so going back to after Arrows, so you're doing this year long thing with Atlantic. What happened
Hmm.
after that?
I signed to I forget the name of the label. I've been on a few like indie labels since. Um, but yeah, just I kept putting out records with like smaller indie labels and doing like light touring, but had never done like television after that. You know what I mean? So it was like definitely like smaller. Um, I think the next full length after Lesser Oceans was Failure Sculptures that I did in Nashville, and that had like Paper Route, Same Blues. Um, I love that. I think that might be maybe my favorite record I've done because it's like I recorded it from like midnight to 6 in the morning, like full flip schedule
Wow.
in Nashville, like during the summer. So it was like thunderstorms and real sticky, and it was at night. And um, yeah, the record was just I was in such a fucking terrible point in my life, like it was just gnarly, like dark, like I had like abandoned my life in New York with the person I was with and all my things, and I was just like in the South, just like getting fucking super real, and so I did that, and that's like a whole era for me. And then after that record, I kind of went crazy, and I moved to Big Sur for a little while. Um,
Oh
I was living
wow.
there, and then I went up to Portland and like was with like a medicine woman for a while, and uh, and then what did I do? Um, I just think I might have recorded another. Did I? Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. I did that, And then where the hell did I go after that? Oh, right. L.A. And then I did Wide Eyed Elk Ensemble EP, which is a really cool album. That has like Pale King on it and stuff. Um, I did that, and then I did the song with Billy Strings, which is really cool. I love that guy. He's like a little genius, virtuoso, sweetheart. Um, and then I met my wife, and then I finished my. I have a record coming out in September. Um, has it's called Bright Soil. Jeremiah Green from Modest Mouse played drums on it, and he
Amazing.
passed away like shortly after. Just
Oh wow.
fucking really, really it was really fucked up for everybody. Um, so it's like kind of weird for me to listen to that record, honestly. Um,
Oh, that's
so
coming out
yeah,
in September.
yeah.
Oh,
Um,
it's heavy.
yeah, it was weird, man. It was like
What did
really
he?
weird.
I feel like I heard about that. I forget. Anyway,
Yeah, some cancer.
yeah, okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it felt like it was that was like really quick moving. I just haven't like been like talking about it like because like I've released like videos and stuff. Like I've released like a few singles leading up to the album. Like Thin Legs, No One, Bright Soil, like with the music videos and stuff like this. But I haven't really brought that up just because it's so like I don't want to feel like I'm capitalizing off of it somehow, right?
Yeah, it's a
And I also
weird,
don't want to ignore it either. So,
it's a weird situation, but it's also like, I mean, my opinion would be, what was that quote? You die twice. You die once physically and once when the last person
hmm,
stops talking about you. So I
right,
feel like in a way, talking about him and his work is like honoring his legacy. I
true.
also feel like, this different conversation, but it just seems like a lot of people have been really sick in the last few years. Like, just in the last 2 months, five different models that I've never met, but they follow me on Instagram. We chatted, have died.
Hmm.
Um, a few from cancer, a couple with heart conditions, and my friend and I were talking about that recently. Like, why are so many people sick? And I'm sick. You know what I mean? Like, I almost died 4 months ago, and I'm still fighting it. Like, I have another at least 4 months before I fully heal, and it's weird to go from like um, totally healthy to then not having health. But
Hmm.
not to turn this and make this about me, but going back to him is
Sure.
like I I can't speak for you, but I always love if like someone is a great person and they worked really hard. I
Hmm.
want to hear about them and I'd love to listen to their work and you know what I mean. Like it's a way to
Yeah.
cherish what they did.
I suppose when the record comes out, probably try to find like a super tactful and like beautiful way to sort of mention it and honor him and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like how to do it, you know, just because it's yeah, it's tricky because I don't want to just be like put the record out because that's fucked up, but I don't want to be like it's the last thing he did before he died. Gotta listen, and then like try to like funnel all the Modest Mouse fans in. I'm just like Jesus Christ, like that just feels so gross, you know. So I'm real
Yeah.
scared about what to do, but I'll probably talk to some people, and I like what you're saying though because yeah, there is really no respect in letting someone kind of not be acknowledged after they're not here. So that's good input. So I'll do that. So yeah, we made that record. Uh, then had a baby. Not me and Jeremiah, but me and my wife. I'm kidding.
How
And
old's your baby?
she's like maybe now like 1 year old and like 12 days.
What? So wait, how long ago did you get married?
It would have been September 1st was 2 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, she's cool.
You're
She's a
living
babe.
living the dream, man. Getting
Yeah,
married, having a kid, like that's amazing.
it's nice. I mean, I think that's like the really weird thing about that. Like when I was, God, maybe before I met my wife, I kind of thought you see like a guy, like some of the kids that I knew when I was young, I see him now, and it's like, oh my god, like you volunteer and you're like a volunteer fireman, and like you have a wife and kids, and like you guys go to Chili's, like what the fuck? I'm like, I'm out here suffering and like, you know, art, you know. But then now I'm like, dude, there's literally nothing cooler than just being like a family man. I think like it's just it makes me the most like happy because I feel like when I'm in my creative state, I get pretty fucking weird and pretty grim and stuff like that, real dark and like not. I don't like enjoy it. Like if I'm writing a record, I feel like I'm like there's like a line of like creativity, and then like over here is like suicide. You know what I mean? It's like it's fucking um
I could relate.
yeah. So it's cool when it's like, you know, you're laying in bed with your wife and like your daughter's asleep and you and your wife like just touch feet because you can't really touch each other because there's a baby, and it's like good night, and you can't talk because the baby's sleeping. Like that's more beautiful than like any record I've ever made. Um, and I was thinking about this like how everything has like an end point that might not be really discussed, right? Or like super determined, but I always think everything that you do, like let's say you know you're a guy and you're like, oh, I want to be like a writer. It's probably because you want a woman to read your book so she falls in love with you, and then you have a child. It's like it usually ends it with you know with that, I think. And that's one thing I've noticed where it's like, oh no, I don't want to be married and have a baby. I need to go out and like write love songs. And it's like, why do you need to write love songs? You could just be one, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to realize at the end of madness is like Little House on the Prairie, you know?
Yeah, I mean, um, I don't think I fully appreciated till, going through the hospital, my priorities in life got pretty clear, and the idea of like having a wife and a family to me sounds like the greatest gift. Like
Mm-hmm.
such a great like imagine if I make all these movies and make all this money and I have all this success and I'm alone. Like what the fuck is the point? You know what I mean?
Horrifying. That's
Yeah.
like my worst nightmare, right? You just sitting there with like your plaques and like photos of yourself on the wall, and you're just like with like a gun in your mouth. Like, no, I
Yeah,
get that,
like
man. That's it's dangerous, dude. Like, yeah, I'd rather be in a trailer, you know, like doing roofing with like a beautiful wife and a baby, you know, than be like
same,
a rock star in a mansion alone. And
same.
that's
And I've
that's the
known
funny thing.
so many very rich people too that say the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, I think one of the most valuable things in life is creating beautiful memories with people that you love.
Right.
And because like when you die, it's not like you could take all your shit with you. Um,
Well, because when you're
and
making artwork, you're sort of just making like faux memories, you know?
yeah,
You're trying to like create moments that aren't even real. So,
yeah,
you know, you maybe if you're doing a real moment like that, you don't need to write the movie or the book or the song because you're all of it at once, and you're just like, no, I don't need to.
yeah. I found that sometimes when I'm in a really great relationship and really happy,
Hmm.
I'm so excited and having so much fun that I'm not like grinding as hard.
Hmm.
um, but
It's weird.
hopefully I'll find a balance.
Yeah, because you could look at it two ways. Like, you know, some guys will be like, "Oh, my buddy got an old lady, and now he's not as driven." And it's like, well, maybe because when he's driven, he was driving to that anyways. So
Yeah,
just
you got to the
let him hang out.
destination.
Yeah,
Um, so for your album coming out, do you have an exact date yet, or
I really think it's like September 19th or 18th, something like
okay?
that. Yeah, and
I would love to
it's gonna
share it.
come out. And I'd plug on this. If this comes out before then, September 22nd. I'm doing a book reading. I wrote a book, and I'm gonna play a little some songs in Nashville, September 22nd, and that's on my Instagram.
Oh,
So
amazing.
that'll be cool.
Nashville. I feel like that's a little bit closer to me than LA since I'm in Florida.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
Y'all are kind of like southern kind of
yeah,
kind of
we're
buddies.
I think we're
Yeah,
close to the same time zone.
yeah,
Um, but hell yeah, I'd love to see you live at some point.
yeah,
Um,
man.
are you gonna have any sort of like launch thing? Is it gonna be the show in Nashville? Is that gonna be the launch thing?
Um, I think I'm probably gonna do like a tour shortly after, maybe October, like a West Coast tour,
Okay.
and then probably try to get like some slots with some maybe bigger bands opening for them and stuff. But long story short is that my agent has been told like let's let's go, whatever you got, that's good, let's do it. So that's nice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And can we announce now that you've written a song called Joshua Schultz is the greatest? And when is that
Yeah.
song going to come out?
Um, it's gonna come out in about 20 minutes.
Oh, is it called Joshua Schultz is a narcissist?
No,
Um,
no, that would be me probably. That's what I've heard.
how long
But
you been living in LA now?
um, 3 years. I basically moved here for my wife, so it's
Did
about.
you guys meet in LA or?
No, no, we met on the internet, and I was
Oh,
like, I'll be
amazing.
right there. You know how it is.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. I was gonna say, so I'm gonna share. I'd love to share your album when it comes out. I'm probably gonna leave some links to your
Hmm.
music videos. Is there a website or something I can direct people to check out more about your music?
Just my Instagram,
Okay.
Fences Music, because it has the link tree with all everything's on there.
Okay, great. I'll put that on there, and maybe we could do this again at some point after the album's out and do a little update.
Yeah,
But
anytime,
dude, it's
anytime.
so good to see your face.
You too, brother.
I might be coming to LA in November. If I do, if you're in town, I'd love to see you.
Yeah, text me. Sounds good.
And uh, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was really fun. Bless you, dude.